Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today we are back with Altimeter Motive's 6-Pack Plus. It's been a few weeks since my initial review and I figured I would do a follow-up and let you guys know where I'm at with it and give you my honest feedback after flying with it now for, like I said, I think we're coming up on just over a month now actually. So anyway, stay tuned guys. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkill's tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Overkill simulations, watch us as we fly.
What's up you guys, and thank you for watching this video. I wanted to jump back in here before you guys get into the main content and sort of do a follow-up, and you guys will understand more in the context after you guys have watched the whole video. But a couple different things. So the way that this video is sort of going to lay out is, first you're going to get a review, my final thoughts on it after about a month of using the 6-Pack Plus. And then I sort of go into overkillonomics, if you will. We talk about the cost. In the previous video that I did on this, there was a lot of, you were either for the cost or really against the cost. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So if you're someone who thinks that the cost is too high, when we get into the price, and there are chapters down in the description below if you guys want. When we get into the cost of it, you're going to hear what the cost and breakdown is of how to basically make this, the 6-Pack Plus. And then you're going to hear about a project that myself and a friend of mine are working on and what we're learning about how expensive things really are. So if you are someone who thinks that the 6-Pack Plus is absolutely ridiculously priced and way overpriced and you can do better, I highly recommend that you watch that section, because like I said, my buddy and I in our project, we've gotten a shock. Things are much higher cost than what we expected. Okay, and we're still going to build it. I think you guys are really going to like it. I'm super excited for that once we get to that point. It's a ways away yet, but we'll see. Anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that you guys had an expectation of where the video was going to go. And then after we talk about the cost, sort of cap everything back off with where I'm at with the 6-Pack Plus. But anyway, I wanted to give you guys the heads up on that. I get a little defensive, I think, in the cost portion. And I think it just goes back to some of the things that I say in the video talking about that some of us, I don't think, have realized how bad it's gotten. Okay, how bad things have really become over the last few years. And don't bring politics to the channel, please. I'm not pointing any direction. I'm just saying over the last few years, things have gotten really high. So I just wanted to come on real quick and give you guys that heads up. Chapters are down below. Watch the video. Let me know what you think. And I really do hope that you guys consider checking out Altimeter Motive's website. I think you guys will dig it. And as always, stay safe and healthy. All right, guys. So the goal of this video is sort of a couple prong, and here's the things that we're going to sort of go through. First, obviously, I'm going to give you guys my initial thoughts with it after a couple of weeks. And actually, like I said, it's been about a month now. We're going to talk about the pros and cons that I have found to it. We're going to talk about the overall immersive experience and how I feel about that, 2D versus VR, a couple of different things there, as well as we're going to talk about the cost and some things that I have learned in trying to develop something of my own, and that might shock you guys. So I've been sort of shocked about something. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. There's really no great rhyme or plan to this particular flight. We're just sort of going to have fun here. We're out in Tucson, Arizona. We're just going to take it around the area in the Chancellor 414. This is an absolutely phenomenal aircraft. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't checked this one out yet. Probably the best twin engine on the market today. I had to take some of my mods out, so some of this stuff is a little messed up here. I was running into some goofy issues that I'm trying to troubleshoot. But anyways, so let's see here. Winds 130, so we'll be taking off runway 12 at 7 knots. And our altimeter is 3009. So this is the first, leads us right into the first thing. As far as immersion, it's absolutely amazing. I use this thing constantly. Am I going the wrong way? Yes, I am. I use this thing constantly, and I have it sort of tweaked off to the side, guys. It's not steady in place because I'm trying to deal with the reflection of the window behind me, but I think I'm just going to have to put it back where it was, but hopefully you guys can see how gorgeous it is still. I say 3009, right? There we go. The overall experience with it has been just a dream. It really has. I've been very, very grateful to have the opportunity to use this thing. I said in the first video that I was nowhere near expecting the level of immersion and the... Sorry, I was scratching my eye. The overall game changer that this thing turned out to be. Now, we're going to talk about virtual reality with it too, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But as far as 2D goes, it's a complete game changer. And the developer reached out to me after my initial video and made a really good point that I hadn't thought about. One of the things that I said in my first video was I couldn't understand why. Why was it such a big deal, and why was it such a big immersion changer for me to have this versus the the 2D panel that's on the monitor? Because it really did make that big of a difference, you guys. The immersive experience is significantly expanded in comparison to the 2D that you experience on your monitor. Like, it is a big, big difference. And I wasn't quite ready for that. And so the way he pointed it out to me, he said, sort of think of it as, he said it has to do with your eyes, being forced to change their focal point, just much like when you're looking at the speedometer in your car. When you're driving, you're looking out the window when you're driving, but then, you have to change your focal point when you look down to see your speed, fuel, whatever, the gauges in your car. And I hadn't thought about it like that, and that is actually a very, very good point. And I think he nailed it right on the head. I think that is the big changer. It definitely creates a much more realistic sense that you are in a cockpit and not looking at a TV screen or computer monitor, whatever you may have. So the immersive experience, just from the visual aspect, is significant. It is very significant, a very significant change. Let's go ahead and get rolling. Whoa, what's going on? Knock it off, computer. Anyway, so that's the first part of it. The second thing is, obviously, as you guys saw, being able to reach out and simply touch the things that I want. Heading knobs, course knobs, oh wow, lift off, not paying attention to airspeed. All of these things make a massive difference. And I think that's where the other piece to this is anytime you have a physical device that you can actually reach out and manipulate the cockpit with over using mouse and keyboard is always going to be a big changer there regardless. But then to have the physical knobs on the associated gauge makes a huge difference. And that's the other big kicker. I have plenty of controls in this cockpit. I have the amazing Flight Sim Builder GNS 530 and G1000 suites. I have the Win-Win Combat and Takeoff panels. I have the CM3 throttles from Virpil. All of them have rotaries and knobs and dials and things that I can map to just about anything that I want. And for example, like before I got this, I did have the altimeter mapped to my Win-Wing panel, one of my Win-Wing panels, and then the other one is the aircraft pressurization for things like the TBM 850 and the PC-12. So, I have been using those, but then as I got this, I find myself wanting to reach here far more than caring about anything else. It's like, I love being able to come in here and mess with the altimeter. I don't know why, it's a completely different thing. But I'm touching this and I'm seeing the altimeter, and it just, again, it changes that immersive experience. The other thing that I am already starting to catch on to is the difference between looking here and out the window. And that's the way that I'm using my monitor. If you think of your monitor as looking out the window, and you think of this as truly looking at your instrument panel, it's changing your flight experience. It's changing things like, whoa, I need to pay attention. Nope. And what I'm actually finding myself doing is having to remind myself to look up versus down more often. I didn't realize until I got this how often I fly by my instruments instead of just looking out the window and flying truly VFR. Until I got this, and because when I got this, I'm noticing my head constantly here instead of out there. Okay, so that's the other big thing. Now let's talk about virtual reality for a second, for those who were waiting for that. I initially said that I found this to ideally to be more for those who are into 2D versus 3D. And again, after speaking with the developer, he's like, I want you to think of it as more of a mixed reality platform. And so I started playing around with that a little bit. And so over the last couple of weeks, I have been trying to use it more often in VR. Now, for mixed reality, there's a key factor here. When you have things like VR Infused that are starting to come along and different mixed reality platforms that are starting to be developed, this is going to start to change things. So for those of you who don't understand what I'm saying by mixed reality, with virtual reality, and especially with any headset that has what we call inside-out tracking, or cameras that are on the outside of the VR headset that allow you to see outward, like Pimax with the Crystal recently released a update to their software with a beta feature, which is the ability to use the tracking cameras to see outside. And it's actually pretty slick, and we're going to be doing a review on that here pretty soon. Once I can figure out, I don't think there is a good way for me to record it, but at least we can discuss it. But anyway, for example, the Quest 2 and Quest 3 absolutely have it. The Quest 3, I think, is the biggest one that's currently taking the best advantage over it. But what it allows you to do is essentially map your cockpit to a specific, how do I put this? You can create an inlay of your cockpit, okay, where you're using the inside-out cameras, and you can actually see, like I would actually be able to see this device through the cameras on the VR headset, see its clarity and all that good jazz. But then everything, there's like a wire, an electronic wire, or if you will, digital wire, that everything outside of the cockpit that I defined, I'm seeing in virtual reality. I'm seeing the sim, I'm seeing the scenery, I'm seeing everything that's outside. And so with a mixed reality platform, you would absolutely be able to see this while still getting that three-dimensional view that you get from virtual reality. If you guys want a better idea of what I'm talking about, please do me a favor and just Google either DCS World or Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've seen one for each. DCS World is probably the best that I've seen so far. But look up DCS World Mixed Reality Virtual VR, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The guy has his home-built cockpit on the bottom of the screen that is static. It never moves. And then everything, and there's like this red digital line that's sort of outlining his cockpit. And everything outside of that is the sim. It's really slick. Still has a ways to go, but I mean, we've seen how quickly VR has advanced. It ain't gonna be long until it's here. So with mixed reality, this is another, then that all those immersive features that I talked about that we're experiencing right now in 2D are now back. Now you have all of those once again with a platform like this. Okay, so obviously you guys know where I stand. I think I've made it pretty clear where I stand as far as the immersive experience and whether or not I enjoy the 6-Pack Plus or any device of this nature. We happen to be looking at the 6-Pack Plus. Obviously the build quality is fantastic. If you guys want a really detailed view, make sure that you guys check out my previous video of it. But if you guys can see, like the glossiness, the gloss plate and everything is very, very gorgeous. The nice screws, everything is just, it's laid out very, very neatly and is designed very, very beautifully. The other thing that we want to talk about is power. It does not require an external power source. You have the one USB cable plugs into your machine, boom. So now let's talk about the big kicker, okay? And I want to make sure we get a chapter for this. All right, guys, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cost, because this is a big sensor for just about every product that I have reviewed recently. Everyone's just cost, it's too expensive, the developers are ripping people off, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sort of going to do my best to address that and put things into perspective. So this is going to be a two-part. First, I'm going to explain the cost of this device and what you're really paying for when you buy anybody's product, because we seem to have lost sight of that. Because this is actually very reasonably priced. It's right around 350 US dollars. We're just going to round it at 350 right now. just to, for argument's sake, for as we talk about two things. We're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about something that myself and a friend of mine are trying to design for the flight sim community and ourselves, that we're also getting a shock of how expensive things really have become out there. So first, let's talk about what we're paying for. You are paying for the design time. You are paying for someone's expertise. You are paying for dies and manufacturing, manufacturing changes so the dies can be made, hardware, software, and then just the overall, you know, people have to make product or profit. That's the whole point of being in business, to make profit. If you don't make profit, we don't get any of this, right? The company's got to be able to survive and make a living. So let's talk about the first part, okay? We're going to talk about expertise, okay? The design of this is incredibly elegant and incredibly well done. The hardware that is used, the fact that you guys are able to see these screens, I'm sitting there looking at my OBS right now. You guys can see these screens so well through a cell phone camera. You guys are looking through a cell phone camera right now. Now, I know cell phone cameras have changed quite a bit over the years, and this one's, you know, no slouch. It's the S23 Ultra. Okay, so it's definitely a good camera, but I can take this same camera and go point it at my $1,500 freaking G9 Samsung monitor, and I get the bars, I get the wiggles, I get all the crap, okay, that you get anytime that you record a digital screen. With here, you guys can see I'm watching it. You guys aren't getting any of that. So that's a testament to the quality of the screen. Okay, the overall design, it is slick. So for the people who say, I can do this myself, you probably can, but are you going to have it this nice? Is it going to look this good? Continuing with the innovation, you have a monitor that should require a power cord, where these don't. He has done the developer did a modification to these to make it so that you no longer require a power source. It gets its power and data from the same USB cable, no problems. Okay? So, then you have to talk about the rest of the hardware. Your plexiglass, the wood plate behind it, your encoders, your buttons, this that has to be cut out and made. Yeah, it starts to add up very, very quickly, and we're going to get to that. So for everyone who said it in a very, very mean way, and this is, I think, why I'm defending this, is because the negativity was pretty intense for those who were negative, weren't nice and very arrogant. And so I'm sort of going to put that one down. When you have put into the cost of the hardware, let's talk about the monitor. For a monitor like this quality, you're going to be looking at anywhere from 120, 150 bucks. Okay, so let's take that. Then you take all of the hardware that's going to be required, and we're going to get into how I know for a fact how expensive all this hardware has become. We're going to get into that in just a minute. The hardware, you're probably looking at another 40 or 50 bucks easily if you were to do it yourself. For the encoders, the plexiglass, actually the plexi that's on top, you'll probably be more than that because you're not going to be able to find it in just this perfect sheet. I doubt it anyway. The plate that mounts it behind, printing time if you're going to do a 3D print, dies and cutters, the trims, the plastic trims and everything that's going around it, blah, blah. You start getting into it, now you're at 60 bucks. So now let's call it you're anywhere between 170 if you go really cheap, and I don't even know how you would do that, but let's say between 170 and $200 I think is a fair bet between the monitor and now all the hardware required and materials required to assemble it. Okay, the last thing that I want you guys to understand, this is using a partnered version of Air Manager. So if you were to want these gauges just like this, you would have to purchase your own copy of Air Manager, which I own, by the way, and that's $60 right there. It's $59.99 was the last time that I looked, and that was how much I purchased it for. So now we've taken our $170 to $200, and now we're in the $230 to $260 range right there. That's before you've assembled it. That's before you've designed it. That's before you have gone through the time to lay out your gauges. So now add in the time for the rest of it. Is your time worth another 80 bucks? You know, I mean, you're talking about quite a few hours. If you are damn good with Air Manager, yeah, you could probably throw this together pretty quickly as far as the screens go. I'll give you that. I'm not near as good with Air Manager, so I am very grateful that this was all done for me. And that's the other thing about this. There's two different softwares. You have the HSI and the Compass. And It's simple. Click, click on the mouse of a piece of software. Boom, it pops up, loads into the screen, and I'm off into the races. I have to do nothing else to make this work. I don't have to run anything else in the background. Okay, so I don't mind paying for the simplicity. And then finally, the last piece, guys, is every developer has to make a profit. If they don't make a profit, they don't stay in business. If they don't stay in business, we don't get it. So when you look after material, okay, I know that the developers probably working with other companies to help, you know, manufacture some of this, cut the dies, things like that, right? Got to have some sort of warehouse or manufacturing, right? So after you have paid for the hardware, paid for your own time, paid for the software, created the partnerships and the relationships like with Air Manager to have this work, you've got your manufacturing paid for, and by the way, he ships for free anywhere in the US, so now you're paying for shipping. How much profit is he really making on all this? And I challenge you guys to go do your research on how much it would really cost you to make this or anything else. And that's not to put anybody down. Okay, it's really not. It's I think we have forgotten that things are not what they were 10 years ago. Look at the Thrustmaster Warthog. The Thrustmaster Warthog, when I bought it 10 years ago almost now, I got it on sale at Fry's Electronics when they were still here in Arizona. They were in Phoenix. I got it on sale for $380. That thing is almost $600 now. Okay, I think, and it depends on the season, but I think the last time I saw it, it was like $499, so maybe $500. Okay, everything has gone up incredibly high, and it's because of what it's costing for manufacturing, shipping, fueling, blah blah blah. So now I'm going to tell you guys why I know what the prices are. Okay, so stick around. The last piece of this is the reason why I want you guys to know is that a friend of mine and I are in the process of developing something for ourselves and then hopefully relay over to the flight sim community that I think you guys are going to really like. We're making something for flight simulation. I'm not going to say what it is yet or how I'm doing it, blah blah blah, but I think it's going to be really cool. And I'm sort of going to try to, if everything works out, I'm going to go the route the Authenticate does, that I will absolutely for free publish the list of parts and the STL files and all that stuff, you know, for free, you know, for anyone who wants to use it. But anyway, getting to that, there's about 25 to 30 switches on this thing, give or take. There's, I think, six or eight encoders that are going to be on it. Okay, and maybe a few LEDs. Nothing crazy, no digital screens like this, nothing like that, at least not yet. Give me a minute until I get a weed at my tail, and I'm sure I will. But just in the switches, you guys, the switches and the encoders. And I've looked on Amazon. I'm a general consumer. I don't have any reach to big manufacturers and things like that. And you'd be surprised what it takes to get in with some of those guys. I've reached out to a couple. Anyway, just in the switches and the encoders, we're just under $100. $100 for switches and encoders. Guys, I remember I did a video probably 6 years ago of how to make your own button box, right? And it was cheap. Like, it was cheap. I took a piece of plexiglass, drilled a few holes in it, right, that would match, painted it black with spray paint. You guys, if you go to my channel and search how to build a button box, you'll see what I'm talking about. The thing was garbage. Like, it really was. Like, it was cool. It was effective. It worked. And, you know, I think it used an Arduino board, I think, or maybe even an arcade board. I think it used an arcade board. And I remember that I was so excited because it was so cheap. It cost me like $30 to do it. It was super cheap, right? And now we're sitting here at over $100 just in the switches, or just under $100. It's bad, guys. Everything has gotten super expensive. So the only reason why I went on this tangent and went on this rave about price and cost is to, I guess, make sure that everyone's understanding really how expensive everything is to produce now, and that when we think about things being super expensive, they're really not. It's when I say that it's a reasonable price, and when you hear all of us, you know, here on YouTube content creators talk about it's actually really reasonably priced, this is a great price, blah blah blah. It really is. It really is. And you just have to sort of dive in and unfortunately accept where things are at now. We're not where we are 10 years ago. We're not where we were 15 years ago. Flight simulation hardware is expensive, and it's because of what it requires to make it. You got so many aspects with flight sim equipment, the screens, the switches, etc. You know, that it's hard to do it cheap. And the one thing that I have learned over all these years of dabbling in computers. You know, I've been digging into computers for almost 30 years. You know, I'm a very big DIY guy. I like to do everything myself as much as possible. It's just, doesn't matter what it is. It's all become so expensive. It's definitely changed. So anyway, now that we have our Overkill's Economics class special over, getting back to the Altimeter Motor 6-pack plus for a minute, I really recommend this, you guys. It's got my stamp. It's a huge deal. And it made a massive difference. So make sure that you guys go down below, check out the link in the description. It'll take you to the Altimeter Motors website. Take a look at their products. Take a look and see if there's anything that you want. They have the 6-pack plus and they have the 6-pack, I believe, although one of them may be being retired. But as far as this particular piece of equipment goes, I can't recommend it enough. The immersive difference from having to look from the screen down to here and changing your focal point, like the developer explained to me what the difference was there, really did make a huge impact there. So I hope you guys found this video useful. I hope you consider supporting companies like Altimeter Motives, the small-time companies, guys. They're the ones who make this kind of stuff really happen. They're where much of the true innovation comes from. It's from simmers just like me and you. Anyway, as always, folks, stay safe and healthy, and I shall see you in the next one.